Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully, you were able to tune in to well, I guess what we would consider part one of this film study on Jesse Minter, the new Ravens head coach, but specifically the scheme that he utilizes, the play calls that he emphasizes, and what we believe is a unique manner of teaching and instruction for his players that makes them prepared out on the field. One that we hope obviously manifests in Baltimore. Um, we did go over how many plays did we do in the last one? Was it six?
We
I
did
think
six.
maybe 6, 7. Probably less here. I know I intend to do individual film studies this week coming up on Minter. Did you have the same level of excitement as me? I told you pre-show that I think I slept 4 hours last night. I was so fired up to watch Minter film because we finally have a head coach. We've been waiting. Seems
Yeah.
like for a month.
Yeah, I spent some time looking into. I wanted to find interviews with him. I wanted to see, and you and I had been talking about Minter all week. I mean, that was who we were intending to do this on anyway.
Yeah.
But it did add a certain. Last night, I felt a certain more of a weight to have something weighty to say on these videos, and so I really started watching. I spent most of the day today watching stuff and watching film, but last night my wheels were spinning, and I really didn't know much about him, and so I wanted to just kind of read certain things and hear him speak and see how he came off as a person. Those were of interest to me. Where were you when you heard the news?
I think I had finished working with students and taken my son to karate. And at that point, I checked the Ravens Discord that I will say I operate, but I think I also should rephrase that I'm fortunate and blessed enough to operate because it has been a huge blessing, help for me in creating content and just at my fingertips with the app, the Discord app, being able to communicate with. I think we've got 112 or 122 or something Ravens fans in there. Some more active than others. Some who focus on schemes. Some who focus on news. Some who focus on data. But it's all great. The whole group is it's a monster. I mean, It's something I never imagined, would happen. And so when I heard about it, the first thing I did was go to the Ravens Discord. Boom, 318 messages had occurred since my last login. So when you leave and log out, when you return, it prompts you, notifies you if you want, how many messages there are waiting on you. It's insane. It's like, so it was really cool just to read people's reactions at my fingertips. And so I've been blessed. Yes, I was the person who had the idea, but other people do a Discord as well. This just happens to be a whole collection of people that have been amazing to me and just to interact with. So sorry I didn't answer your question, but I was busy at my son's karate and then found out about it. I was excited and I still am.
Mm-hmm. No, that's cool in terms of the Discord. I mean, I think you've added a lot, I'm sure of it actually, to the Ravens community. And, probably a lot to the education of a lot of us, a lot of fans and things like that in terms
I think
of
we
the
all,
game.
the cool thing is everyone is so supportive in my experience. I mean, very rarely do you have a negative. Usually the negative interactions are from established major media, newspaper, radio.
Hmm.
It's not content creators. I don't think that for the Ravens, I've never encountered a negative, situation from a content creator, nor have I tried to visit one on anyone else. I hope it's just,
Yeah.
and I think everyone's so excited right now. I hope for Ravens fans, there's just an insane amount of content to consume, and we're trying to bring you a second hour of it, here with a little bit more film that branches off maybe in a different. Even though I think once again, correct me if I'm wrong. You're going to do 3x1 coverages to start.
Yep. This first play is another 3x1. You know, these were of interest to me. There we go. These are of interest to me. When you start to see variation in how they play these coverages. I also thought this is interesting if I'm on the screen now. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just what they have here. This is a third down call. What they have by way of this guy, where Jesse's got him aligned. He's going to end up basically blitzing the back here. He's perfectly aligned to the back off the ball, but you can see kind of this stack here, or this rack.
Protected kind of.
Yep. And I think at this point, you know, he's going to see that he's got that man coverage, but I love the way it's disguised on the back end too. We're going to see kind of a two look being presented to Mahomes. Both of them right there as the ball's being, look at this, as the ball's being snapped, they're both kind of floating into a too high look. But as he gets it in his hands, we get kind of a one hole, right? That's what they're playing here with this safety coming down.
And the guy who's on the left hash for the defense, like the 37, 38. Yeah.
So I found that just fascinating, that how late they held that disguise. And you might
timing.
Right here, you can see it from this. This is, where were they? Overseas for this game?
Oh, I remember this one. I remember this film. Like, why are they so zoomed? This is almost like the all-22 end zone.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. But yeah, you can see the ball's being snapped, and they're kind of floating right now into that two. And then we'll see.
Look at this. And then they zoom out. And then they zoom out more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's bad. This one's not as bad. So this guy coming towards, blitzing the back, stunting over a gap once the ball's snapped.
Yeah.
I like what
mesh.
Mac does.
It's pretty much mesh, right?
Yes, mesh underneath. And Mac, this is coached as well. He's throwing. This is intentional. He's holding the back up here. So he's collapsing the edge and holding the back up to get the gap for the tailback or the linebacker to come through. This is the play where Mahomes kind of blasts his own guy.
Kelsey.
Yeah. Kelsey blasts his own guy there. But again, you see this kind of. Go ahead, Coach.
It's a little bit of an old school philosophy with that Mac as a rusher. You know, some people may remember, you know, like the Marshall Faulk Kurt Warner Rams. I think 7 times in the first half that game, he's releasing into the flats in a route, and the Patriots OLBs are chipping him.
Mm-hmm.
But chip ain't the right word for what you do sometimes to those guys. You really smash the guy.
Right.
And that's not necessarily what occurs here. I'd say Mac just interrupts him, disrupts, whatever.
Right.
And sometimes the running back is trying to chip you. So you're both trying to run into each other. But that's a little bit of an old school 50 mentality. I think we should emphasize it's not just what Minter's doing and maybe even why he's doing it, but it's when. You know, and you touched on it here immediately. It's the safeties almost bailing for a moment and then readjusting or reorienting to those blue lines you have there. And that is a different level, I think, than what we've been able to get to the last couple of years in terms of obfuscation, right?
The manner of the disguise, too, is a little bit unusual. I mean, everybody tries to do this, but there's a certain, and we touched on it in part 1 of the double feature, but there's a certain ease with which these guys pull this off.
Yeah.
You know, to me, and it just, not just the safeties, right there, they're just clearly widening to play at some kind of too high, you know.
And then, you know what would be interesting to me is to find plays where you see that dynamic, where the safeties start to move, almost split, and then look at the quarterback's eyes and see how the safeties move. Because what I just noticed there was Mahomes looked to the top, and that's the safety who got depth, and the safety away from Mahomes' eyes dropped down. And I just wonder if that's one of his calls for, that technique. Okay, we're going to drop out. Maybe it's predetermined who's dropping down, and maybe it's not. Maybe he's got another call. That's the beautiful thing about these multiple systems, is that you don't know what's a call and you don't know what's a read. And you want to try to give the offense as many of those ambiguous things to determine on their own and just overwhelm them, with information. I love this stuff. This is very cool to see the timing at which he's dropping that guy down.
Right. Yeah, it's perfect. Those are the two things that stood out to me, right? You get motion this way or shift. But those are the two things that stood out. Again, yet another wrinkle in how he plays the 3-by-1.
Have you seen the one where people have been talking about? I think it's against the Giants, where it's he's running a guy across to cover man, presumably, and the DB who's running across in man ends up blitzing.
No, that's cool.
It's a big conversation in the Ravens Discord and on social media about that. How often does that happen? Not very.
Right.
I don't even have my screen shared. Sorry about that. I'm going to go a different track with this one, and in fact, it's going to be two plays, and it's going to be the same personnel group, the same formation presented to the defense. This is against the Eagles in Week 14, and I think it's important to mention here, and hopefully I'll remember as we go through. I think it's a 1st and 20. Maybe it's a 2nd and 20, but I think it's a 1st and 20. And just for a moment, I'm just going to show you the formation and the motion for this play. Okay, you got two tight ends, motion by Devonta Smith, and notice the running back is on the same side as the two tight ends. I will come back to this play in a moment. Just bear with me for a moment, guys. The next play that I'll show you, and this is from their third possession, is two tight ends, Devonta Smith in motion, running back on the same side as the tight end. Okay? So it's going to be two plays in a row from the same personnel group, same formation, same exact motion. And they're in their base 3-4 defense both times. So you've got an OLB, and that guy 45 to me appears to be pointing at the motion man, saying he's going to go in motion. That's what I perceive. Is that he's right now saying, I don't know what he's pointing at. Is he pointing at Jalen Hurts? Is he pointing directly at this guy? No, the angle of his arm and fingers is different, but I think he's communicating, hey, that guy's going in motion. And he sure enough is right, if my interpretation is correct. What I love about this one is the motion guy is going to go vertical, and he's going to be covered by Cam Hart, number 20, the guy from Maryland, played at Notre Dame. What I really like is that they are unwilling to cede this kind of sail route to the tight end. It's 1st and 20. And, so often in our defense, I think you pointed it out, the last video that we did, we would be okay with ceding this route, but making sure that, we don't give up this vertical. And so the safety may take an orientation that's a little bit deeper, I guess less aggressive. Oh, we'll give up 11 yards or 12 yards, and we'll play ball on 2nd and 8 or 3rd and 8. I think it's a first down to me. I think you can see it. Maybe you can't. I think that's the marker there. If you guys are able to see that, probably not. So I perceive that we've got a guy who at times on 1st and 20, 2nd and 16 is not willing to give up, cede that 10, 11-yard completion to give us a 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6. I feel like I'm watching a guy who says, I don't want 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. I want 3rd and 11.
Yeah. Well, invariably, that's what what ends up happening, at least last year with the Ravens. They'll get somebody in 2nd and 15, and sure enough, the next play they'll give up 14.
Yeah.
That's what ends up happening when tends to end up happening. You play it safe, somebody breaks a tackle. And that happened too many times, I think, last year.
It's an example too. I think that the way they cover things up and the way they end up matching routes. Again, I think it's partially related to the fact that Hurts is looking here, a flood sail concept, whatever you want to call it. One tight end running the sail or deeper out. This tight end, kind of late. So I guess you'd call it a flood, right? You got three.
Yeah.
Whoops. I guess you call it a flood. But that guys are coached in certain situations to, okay, we're going to take this away and we'll leave you the low percentage one-on-one. It's great to see Cam Hart playing well, man. I mean, I remember when he came out of Notre Dame, the film just looked so good. And we, I think we passed over him twice. But so keep this play in mind. This is first possession. It's a 1st and 20. He's not willing to give up, this route here to the tight end. And then the third possession, keep in mind, we've moved forward 2 drives here. You got the same personnel, 12, same formation. He's also in a base defensive structure, same motion, but now it's a run play. Now, how does Jesse Minter get into the right call all the time? One of the things that we talked about, I think you prompted me in the first video, was NFL player reached out to me via Twitter and said, hey, look, the guy prepares us for situations, but not just the formation one time. He prepares us for the formation on 2nd and 3, the formation on 1st and 10. And here we've got a 1st and 10 on the third possession. This is first play of the drive, I believe. It's like a split zone concept. One of the tight ends is going to go across, kick out the defensive end, edge defender. And this little safety, watch the communication that you're getting here.
Mm-hmm.
As the motion goes across, you go ahead and stay. I'm gone. Now he doesn't make the tackle. Okay, that's not the guy that makes the tackle. It's a really nice play and nice angle by that's Denzel Perryman, who I am really, first of all, glad to see competing and playing well. Veteran inside linebacker, a lot of ability. I think played with the Raiders. Let me go to the end zone angle of this one. It's the same 12 personnel. There's your 2 tight ends. One of them kind of hidden. Remember on the last play, this tight end released and he ran that deep out. This tight end kind of chucked or chipped and then released into the flats. And then Devonta Smith ran the vertical. So here we are, same formation, same everything. Yes, is it possible that Jesse Minter is calling this and he's the guy who's right? Yeah, he's super smart. He's brilliant. He's prepared. We think that he's a teacher and he gives these guys information during the week and they go out and apply it. Even though we got the same formation, same everything, you're looking at 2 different calls. Denzel Perryman didn't do this on the first play. Actually, on the first play, Denzel Perryman and Henley were switched. They were on the other side. So I don't know, man. Stuff like that. Formations is my jam. It's what I really identify with, and I'm excited that we've got a guy who maybe sees the game that way to an extent.
And it's the front as well, moving on however that call comes about. The front's moving and the other guys are filling. Opposite, the safety and the linebacker.
Yeah, this is a guy coming down. Sometimes you practice it during the week and it's, okay, first time through, and I kind of talked about this in the last video, first time through, let's say we have both of these guys memorize the formations. So from 12 personnel. First time through, we go A calls. So you have A calls. The first time we see each formation, or maybe the first drive, we say, okay, we're going A calls. And so my call from the sideline is pinch double dog black. Whatever, black is our coverage call, pinch double dog is a stunt. But then at the end of it is a tag, A. And A means you're up.
Mm.
You got if whatever the formation is, you're going to check us into whatever I've taught you all week. This guy has B calls. So I could say pinch double dog or hand signal it, pinch double dog black B, and now he's up. And so that's why sometimes it's one system. It's not the system. There's a whole bunch of them. That's how you end up with the same formation, different calls. But again, it could just be Jesse Minter making the call in the huddle, and he just happens to be right on this run call. That's certainly possible sometimes. I submit to you and everybody else that we're looking at a guy who teaches players how to identify things, and he's got a system that elevates the floor of everyone because they it's not always about being in the right call. It's about not being in the wrong one.
You know, Coach, I'd be interested in Owe and what we may never hear anything, but he would be a very interesting guy to hear from in terms of Minter, what his feelings about Minter, how he was coached over there, how he fit in over there.
I will say it seemed like in pass rush situations, it almost seemed like he was in a 3-point stance more there. And I don't know because I don't have all the film. I only have some. I don't know if people enjoy that type of discussion about how calls are disseminated. Of course, Jesse Minter is going to do it in a more professional and probably complicated way than I just described. But there are ways to differentiate, your look while not asking one player to memorize so many different things. So that's why I went over some of that. Let me get you back on screen. You've got is it another 3x1 or? It's a sack, 2-man, right?
Yeah, this is 2-man. Ravens are gonna play, or Chargers are gonna play 2-man here with a spy.
Kinda.
3rd down and goal, I believe. They get him. Here's our spy here, the purple. We got 2x2. I think we got something like that. The rush, the spy ends up getting him. I do think it's interesting here the way Derwin James plays 2 receivers here, or 2 responsibilities. He's cutting off the inside angle here, this is difficult because he's over Kelsey. But he's not going to let this guy cross his face. And I'm going to suppose or suspect they know the tendencies here with the quarterback. But he comes off of that and then takes Kelsey. And then you have these 2. I'm really starting to love this coverage. You have these 2 guys back here over top. Man coverage everywhere
what
else.
Angle does he have? Yeah, what angles that route have? Geometrically, there isn't one, right?
Right. Yep. And right there, having that, just the wherewithal to hang tight, make sure he doesn't cross right there.
Yeah. And then the spy gets him, right?
The spy gets him, yeah. And it's interesting, too. You see, in terms of the rush being set up, this is kind of what you want with right here. This guy just kind of pressing the pocket, 3-man rush with the spy, but you've got 3 blockers kind of linked up with one guy, 1-on-1s on the outside, 2-man, taking away this route by this receiver early, and then just a real purposeful pursuit by the spy here.
It's also very similar to what the Lions did to us in week 3 that I kept calling it 3+1 by letting the edge defenders get upfield. They've given, don't get me wrong, they've kind of given Mahomes, I guess I'll be simplistic about it, they've almost given him a 2-way go. He could go to his right underneath of the right tackle, or he could go to his left underneath of the left tackle, and the spy is in position for, to pursue in either case. So kind of cool to see. Really, that's straight out of the Lions playbook from week 3 on 3rd downs against us. 2-man.
And you've got
3+1.
Yeah, if he does escape the pocket and get away from the spy, you've got those 2 safeties. Does a good job reading it. And I kind of circled this at the end. I kind of like how he gets up after the sack. right there.
Yeah.
But you notice everybody's in pursuit. Everybody's around the ball there as well. Really interesting coverage. You can see everybody kind of at the line of scrimmage. Ends up being just a 3-man pressure, one off each side, and then the center, or excuse me, the nose taking up 3 blocks.
Linebacker, or whoever that is, looks like a linebacker. Did a nice job of running through with. Is that
43.
Pacheco?
Yeah, 43. Yeah.
There's one thing for me. You've shown different games than I have, to an extent, in the 2 videos that we've done here. There's a lot of guys that got on the field at the second and third level of the defense for this team. There seems to me from the outside, I guess at this point we've got 1 foot on the inside because we're watching so much Chargers film, both of us. There seems to me to be a lot of players who contributed, and it's very reminiscent of McDonald's time here in 22 and 23, where to a certain extent, guys were just kind of, plug and play. Ronald Darby, the outside corner.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Van Noy, of course, he played great in 24 as well from a production standpoint. But when we signed him and he played in week 4, 2023 in Cleveland, nobody knew he was going to put up 9.5 sacks.
Right.
Jadeveon Clowney, plug and play. There just seems to me to be across this system this way to elevate players. Not that these guys don't have talent, but to raise their floor, perhaps, and make them more consistent with what they do. And I don't know how he gets that done, man, other than just being maybe just a great coach on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and if that theory proves out to be true, we've got him as a head coach. He's not going anywhere. In McDonald's second year, guys were having career years. You mentioned this, Brandon Stevens.
Yeah.
Van Noy, Matabike. Yeah, the list goes on. And you're seeing Oweh having a rejuvenation just over 12 games. Looks like a first-round pick,
Yep. At one point in time, Asante Samuel is, one of the top corners in the league, and he suffers an injury. They draft Cam Hart. I think it's Tarheeb Steele. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I don't want to be disrespectful. He's a very talented and tough football player. But him and Cam Hart are not guys that, like I said, Cam Hart was a 4th or 5th round draft pick, I think. I don't believe he was a third rounder. So it's not that those guys don't have talent. It's just that someone in our Ravens Discord, I think it was Danny, shout out to him because he's like, his meme and GIF usage in the Discord is, on par with my own, maybe. But he pointed it out, the spending that the Chargers have on the defensive side of the ball is quite low. And I think, to branch off for a moment, I think that's kind of where we've got to go. We've allocated so much funds to the defensive side, and in 24 and 25, there was not a commensurate, return on that financial investment, in my opinion. And I get it. People will say, well, your quarterback is taking up a large chunk of salary. Well, this is not the only professional franchise that has a quarterback getting a ton of money. This is one of the higher defensive payrolls in the NFL, and we were really horrible on the defensive side. I think that's got to move or shift in the other direction some. And here we've got a guy who it looks like his system can account for that, maybe.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do. We've mentioned DaCosta being on the hot seat. I don't know if that's means he's in danger of losing his job at some point, but it'll be interesting to see how much the philosophy changes in free agency, the draft. It occurs to me, like, as I'm watching that video we just watched, that clip, a lot of these sacks and these pressures are coverage sacks, coverage pressures, where the quarterback, Mahomes, is standing back there in a fairly clean pocket, holding the football, or the Jaguars quarterback is just patting the football, looking for somebody who's open. So the coverage on the back end is very multiple and very, very pleasing to watch. So yeah,
Absolutely.
to your point about the spending on the defensive side, there's a lot of needs on this team, but I think that's some very good points in terms of the system being put in place by Minter. And you may need a guy like, let's say, and he may see a guy like Aeneas Peebles and say, yeah, that's who I want. He's going to be fine. Yeah.
You know, another point that it came up as you were going over that play, and I will show one more play here in a moment. It's about identification, and it actually ends up being a 5 or 6 yard gain. So it's a positive play. But I want to talk about how I think Minter's system promotes players identifying things and reacting to it. But before we do that, and this will be somewhat negative for some people. We think, I know I do, Jesse Minter can raise the floor of a number of players. And we have film that kind of proves it, statistical production that kind of proves it. I don't know that we can say the same thing at all in the last 5, 6, 7 years about John Harbaugh. I don't know that he elevated anyone on the offensive or the defensive side from an individual standpoint with his now. Lamar's obviously been a 2-time MVP. So, and Harbaugh was the guy who, made the decision in 2018 to put him in there, as a rookie, change the structure. So there's some real decisions there that had to be made serious. I think it was, personal, save his own job. But, we have a guy who right now, Minter, if he didn't get a head coaching job, he went to, some place that has had a porous defense, whatever that location is, we would expect Jesse Minter to immediately raise the statistical production of the team and also individuals and basically get more out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask, maybe not you, but the people listening and watching, if the same thing was asked of John Harbaugh to go somewhere and be a defensive coordinator in the same fictitious city that Jesse Minter goes to in my example I just gave, would you have the same expectation? You're lying to yourself if you say you do. And you wouldn't say that on the offensive side either. So from that standpoint, even though I know people have a complaint about hiring a defensive guy, I'm glad that we have a head coach who can and will call plays and who we have a proven track record of elevating players who are not your star guys. The Oweh difference is stark on film. It is there, and there is no way for us to say anything other than they got a whole lot more out of Oweh in 2025 than we did.
Yeah, they had him on the field to rush primarily as well. I mean, he wasn't one of their edge guys on early downs typically. So he got him. Oweh, the Chargers got him, and he knew what he wanted to do with him right away. I think he has that ability to identify things in players, say like an Aeneas Peebles that maybe haven't been brought out. Yep. I heard somebody say recently, Puka Nacua. Coach Harbaugh really wanted him in the draft. That was the report recently that I heard. That was his guy or something. And then I heard somebody say, and I thought this rang true, if Nacua would have come to the Ravens, he would have been a standout special teams player.
Right.
He's Pro Bowler. That's what he would have been doing,
It's so kind of you cannot attack it. People think you cannot attack it when that's put out there. We're just supposed to accept whatever someone says. Like, okay, great. You wanted him. Well, you drafted Caillou Blue Kelly, I think at 153 or 157, 155. And Puka Nacua went at 177. You had 20, 22, 23 picks, whatever it was in between as the head coach. Presumably you're in the same building, same room as Eric DeCosta to say, hey, man, let's give up next year's 4th and this year's 6th. I really believe in this guy. I like this dude. Maybe he said that and EDC told him no. I get the sense that now that John Harbaugh's got the New York media behind him, obviously, if that had been the case and Harbaugh had made that request to EDC, we would have heard about it. We would have heard, oh, he asked Eric DaCosta to trade up to get him. So, I call BS on that. Not that it's may not be a true statement, but we're going to pick and choose the times when you wanted someone who's a great player who just happens to still be playing in this year's playoffs compared to some of the other ones that failed. So thankfully we have that whole dynamic gone now. And hopefully we got a more realistic person as far as evaluating players and not giving a shit about who gets the credit for it. So this will be my last play that I talk about, and it's again dealing with identification, and it's a little simplistic, but I want you to kind of watch. You got these two guys. You don't have that safety up there. I don't think I did the all 22 angle of this one, but just watch these guys. They're clearly waiting for something. It's 22 personnel for the Patriots. Okay, last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago at this point. And it's a 1st and 10 on the first possession. So we're talking about the mic, and watch the signal that he gives. What kind of signal do you think that is right there? Looks like a run symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is run. And then, it still ends up being a 5 or maybe a 6-yard gain. It's a lead play into the boundary. This tight end is stepping out on Khalil Mack. The running back does get some yards, but what I want to focus on is not just the communication of this guy, but how Perryman, watch him move just enough so that he can climb over the top. Talking about that last step there. And then this is the same angle that he ends up going on. I see evidence, I see markers of guys who are prepared for the play that happens post-snap consistently. That is a prepared defense. Again, there's another part of this, and that's that the corners and the safeties get involved. I don't think this guy actually finishes the tackle. I'm not sure who that is. That might be Steele there. But I see evidence of prepared minds, plural, on the defensive side. And, when you get 11 or 5 or maybe even 2 or 3 guys highly motivated and they're prepared for the situation, you can do great things. 17.7 points allowed in 2024. That was great. First in the league. Last year, I think he was 9th or 8th. 9th, 20 points per game. So pretty good as well. I think we're both seeing what we believe is going to be a more prepared defense. Minter's got more than that to juggle or navigate, though, right? He's got a lot of hires to do and decisions to make about, the draft, free agency, et cetera. What's your most exciting part of the offseason, EA? For this team, this year, I mean.
Draft is always a big deal. But there's so much to watch in terms of these hires that he's going to make. I am curious about how consistently they stop the run. I mean, the Chargers or Minter. There are teams that did run on them,
mm-hmm.
And maybe those are the games where maybe they're anticipating the wrong call, let's say, or somebody just makes a play. We ran on them pretty well.
Yep. 24, we ended up with – I've got another tab open. So 24, we ended up with 212 on the ground when we beat them 30-23. 24, they got blown out by the Bucs in Week 15, and they gave up 223 on the ground. Thereafter, again, that was Week 15. Thereafter, there was some improvement. 110 to the Broncos, 96 to the Patriots, 39 to the Raiders. Those are bad football teams at that point. And then 168 in the playoff loss to the Texans. We're talking about 2024. This year, to your point, you do have, 161 to the Giants, 163 to the Commanders. Both of those are losses. 120 to the Colts, also a loss. 192 to the Jags, a loss. 134 in the overtime win over the Eagles. And then, to finish the year, I have to say, this almost looks like a pattern to me. After giving up 134 to the Eagles in Week 14, you get 49 to the Chiefs, bad team, 91 to the Cowboys, 118 to the Broncos, 116 to the Texans, and then they did give up 146 in the loss to the Patriots. So, yeah, I think there's some – correct me if I'm wrong, we have been really good at defending the run the last 2 years under Zach Orr, generally, but horrible against the pass.
Yeah.
This is some type of flipping of that script.
That's probably the reason I wanted to know how you felt our tackles compared to their tackles. And I think that's a big, in terms of your question, I'm sorry I didn't answer that. I want to see what we do with the defensive line. That interests me. Certainly the offensive line. I'm still getting my hands and my head around the draft and what's the strong point. The strong points are. How about you? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, the draft. I mean, but this is fun right now to be able to look at something that's new, that is a dedicated play caller as a head coach, and that is something that we haven't had. We can safeguard one side of the ball for a long period of time as long as Minter and the Ravens are successful. And the reality is, with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and Kyle Hamilton, we are going to be successful. There's going to be this year. We clearly could have won both games against the Steelers, but rewind a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you could make the same statement every year that we could have won both Steelers games. Isaiah Likely, touchdown, not a touchdown, whatever, and then the missed field goal that would have put us in the playoffs. So we could have had 10 wins, even and we're a bad football team. We're not a good football team.
Yep.
At all. So, for me, I like where we are, as long as, like you said, I don't think we compare favorably with their defensive tackles from this standpoint. Travis Jones on first and second down has to be a run-stopping guy. And on third downs, he also has to be a pass rush guy. And I feel like he can do that, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that he can do that for 4 quarters for 17 games. I feel like we need some upgrade there. And to be direct, and I know people will not like this revisionist history, but missed opportunity last year drafting Teddy Buchanan and Carson Vincent in round 4 and round 5. And while 4 defensive tackles are on the board that ended up being rookies and playing significant snaps for other people, in my opinion. And we drafted Aeneas Peebles in the 6th round, who I like, but was inactive a ton. We never could have anticipated the injury to Matabike, I know. But in a draft that was heavy in D tackles, we totally missed out.
Really terrific. Yeah, really terrific class. And I think I've seen that too many times now from DaCosta, where there's a strength in the class and you don't draw on it in the way you might. It's interesting. It'll be interesting where they go in terms of the offensive line. What happens with our free agents? Linderbaum, Likely. I have to assume he's gone, but just a lot. Not to be negative about it, but a lot of strange stuff to me out of DaCosta. Decisions.
100%.
Regarding Likely, for example, I don't understand. If you couldn't afford Likely, I still don't understand signing Mark Andrews.
Have you ever had this thought? It's comparing two things that are not related, perhaps. But in the past, whether it was Monken or Greg Roman, we had situations where we would do things offensively between the 20s, and at a certain point, the red zone or short yardage, go to very predictable play calls, 22 personnel power. Sometimes it's successful, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's not. And I have mentioned this on my channel before, and I think you and I have talked about it. I think there have been hardball plays that are hardball schemes, things he prefers, and even times where he's the guy making the decision to call it. And then I will compare this to the draft, whereby I think rounds 1 and 2, no, I'll liken it to the draft, not compare it. Rounds 1 and 2 have been pretty good for the most part. And then we get to the third round or the fourth round, and my comparison here, or my analogy, is that the third or the fourth round, we're now inside the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wonder about the involvement of position coaches and or hardball too much. Eric DeCosta is a guy who gets paid. Should he take their input? Absolutely. I hate the red star justification to take a player because a position coach likes them. It's your job to draft players that we can use. And I think we've gone astray in the third, fourth round onward at times in the last 2 or 3 drafts. I know 2022 was great in the fourth round, but that was a very unique draft class, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my analogy that doesn't work in the beginning, middle, or maybe even in the end, but it's how I think of the draft sometimes, that there might be involvement of other people, assistant coaches, hardball, that gets in the way of what Eric DeCosta and Ozzie Newsome and those guys, need to do for the needs of the roster. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, I think DeCosta is a consensus guy, even down to the last second in the room. I don't think he quite knows until he gets confirmation from 2 or 3 others. Could be wrong, but that's the way it strikes me when I hear some of the behind-the-scenes conversations. I think there's decisions that you would have made up long before that. So I think he's, for better or worse, I think he's very conscientious of consensus when he's selecting a player.
It makes me wonder a little bit too about the whole zig when everybody's zagging, as far as the depth of D tackle in last year's draft. We don't need that. We don't need that, but it's there. Tonka Hemingway is a guy who's there. I think when we picked Buchanan and Vincent, maybe he was selected between those two, but we traded like 3 times there. Tonka Hemingway ended up with 4 sacks in 9 games for the Raiders and very limited snaps. And, was a pretty talented guy. Does he come to Baltimore and put up 4 sacks? Maybe not. My point is, we seem to leave talent on the board that seems obvious to everyone else, and kind of zig when everybody else zags or go in another direction. So, hey, maybe Minter will bring more involvement,
Mm-hmm. Well, he has a different vision of what he wants and who he likes and how they fit, Well,
man, I hope you enjoyed this process. Yeah, I know it's a late night. We recorded these Friday evening for you guys. We put 2 of them out. If you didn't watch the first one that we put out on EA's channel, please consider doing so now. The idea was to premiere these back-to-back on Saturdays to get as much film and commentary out there for you guys as possible to consume while dealing with the snow and the wind and the cold. Do you want to do this again tomorrow night, man?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I think my wife would have a fit because, watching so much Minter film last night after the announcement, into the wee hours of the morning, and then waking up again today to kind of prepare for this a little bit. She's like, your videos better do good today, or this weekend for this one. So, well, man, thank you for this, Friday night inconvenience, but a lot of fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate you, Coach.
Yeah, and if you guys enjoyed it, please let us know in the comment section. I know we may have gone more commentary here, but there's definitely an audience for that as well. We certainly intend to show as much film as possible. I know, these will be up on my channel, and then cut up and edited into smaller pieces as well if people enjoy, smaller short form content. We appreciate you guys' time, man. If you have suggestions for further film study videos on Jesse Minter or commentary / draft stuff, please let us know in the comment section. Appreciate you guys' time.